Okay, we are going to move on now to look at a different keyword in Python called the if statement. We're going to be spending a few lessons on the if statement. It's quite lengthy in as much as there's lots of bits that we're going to add to it as we go along. And then for the exam, there's a sort of alternate way of doing things that you need to learn. So I'm going to take you through nice and slowly. I'm going to build up in the way that we did over the past couple of lessons. I've done a project. I'm not asking you to do the project. I'm asking you to go through the project with me through the video, and then in exercises just fill in some blanks. So you're not going to be responsible for doing a project at all. If you are interested in the PHP version, then I will include that as well for the code. So let's go through this project. Remember, my important point here is that we're learning a new statement called the if statement, and that is going to lead to a new flowchart symbol that we're going to use. So this is the task that we've been set at the top of the screen. I want you to write a program, or me write a program, to ask the user for a password. If the user types a correct password, the message "you are logged in" is displayed on the screen. That is it. No, please type again, or sorry, that's the wrong password. That's the entire program that I want. So ask for a password and then type "you are logged in" if they type in the correct password. So in the design section, I've given some examples of some screens. So there's two here that we could possibly get. The whole point here is that you really are free to choose and go along any path that you want. There's no right or wrong answer, and it's okay to get things wrong. And that is probably the hardest lesson that you have to learn, is that you can choose different methods. And the problem is with choosing different methods is you have to learn a lot more. So bear with me. So here we go. Here's my example of a screen. The first screen is where the user enters an incorrect password. So on the screen, I'm expecting it to say, "Please enter a password," then type "let me in," which is the wrong password. And what happens is that here we just get the 3 chevrons with nothing. It's not going to display anything at all. So it's only going to display something if the user types a correct password. So the second screen is when the user types a correct password. So please enter a password as before, and then I'm giving the password swordfish, which is the correct password, and then it prints "you are logged in" on the screen. That's what I expect to happen. Now in testing, again, if we look at numbers or just pressing enter, etc., well, all of those would be declared as an incorrect password, so I would expect nothing to happen. So going from my program, my task that I've got to do, I can probably pull out a variable. I'm not asking for a person's name, but I am asking for a password. So I might have a password, a variable called password, and that's going to be of type string because I want words and letters and not just numbers. However, a password could be numbers, but even so, it would still be the data type string. And the purpose of that is it holds the password that the user types in. So below I've got a flow chart. And really in the exercise, you are going to repeat this flow chart just as it is, nothing special. So I'm going to write this flow chart now to show you how to design it. And one of the problems is because we are getting larger and larger programs, then flowcharts become a bit unmanageable. They become a bit too long to be seen on the screen or be able to read them properly. So we start with the terminator, and that is the start of our program. So we type start, and then we are going to prompt the user. We're going to ask them for some input. And I've got this in pseudocode in the document, so if you're not following along, don't worry too much at the moment. Just see what I'm doing. So I'm going to write here output. I'm going to write a message to the screen, and then please enter a password. Then I'm going to have another one of these, to get that password into the computer. So this time we've got an input, and what we're inputting in is the password. So let's just straighten these up a little bit and draw lines from one to the other. Whoops, wrong way. That's not going to be good. There we go. Now at the moment this is called a sequence. We're doing one thing after the other. Now we've got something called selection. There's three parts to programming that you need to learn. They're called constructs, and it's sequence, selection and iteration. And we've done sequence, which is one thing following another. Now we're going to do the second one, which is called selection. And to do selection, we need the diamond, the decision box. So we're going to make a decision. So once they've inputted the password, I'm going to write in here just a question mark. I like to put a question mark in because it's a decision. We're asking a question. Do passwords match? So I'm really writing that in English rather than in any coding language. Do the passwords match? And the answer can either be yes or no. And that is true or false. And it is always true of this diamond symbol, that we're going to ask a question and the answer can only be yes or no. So let me join these two together to show the flow of the program. And we then sort of decide what's going to happen if it's true. So if the passwords match, I can pull out a line which says yes. But first of all, I need a box to say what I'm going to be doing. And if the passwords do match, I need to output that message. So I'm going to write on here output, and the message that I wanted to enter or say was you are logged in. And there we go. So now I can drag my symbol from there to the box. So if the passwords match, yes, it writes out you are logged in. However, if they don't match, well, basically I said we don't need to do anything. We just go to the end of our program. So there's the end of our program, and I can take the line from here and drag it down. There's a little bit squiffy there. Let's try that one again. There we go. And I'm going to see if I can drag that no up a little bit. There we go. And this is what I want you to do, is practice using lucid charts on writing these flowcharts. If you're doing it by hand, that's great, but I've seen lots of scruffy ones where I can't see if the box is a parallelogram or a rectangle. So you really need to draw very carefully the symbols because they mean something. So we've got the flow going down to here, but the flow sort of runs out here. We've printed out the message and we've got to continue the flow to the end of the program. So I can take another line from that box and join it back onto the main line. There we go. So my flow is do the passwords match? Yes. Output you're logged in, and then come back to the main line and go down to the end. If the passwords don't match, it just goes to the end. And that is my flowchart diagram. I'm going to ask you as part of the exercise to recreate that yourself, just to give yourself some practice either drawing it or using lucid charts to see how difficult it is. And again, it's a very small program, but the flowchart is getting larger. So back to my project, that's what I've just done. So I've pasted in my flowchart and I'm writing out the pseudocode, which is, you either use one or the other. I've put both in just so that I can extend this at the end of the video. So I've got a task that we need to do. So the pseudocode says write out, please enter a password that matches this box here. And then it says read in password that matches this box here. And then this diamond shape, the decision, is an if statement. And what we're trying to do is find out if the passwords match. Now you could use the words, do passwords match? And I've got here is password equal to swordfish. So I've changed it a little around a little bit, it doesn't matter. But I'm trying to write this in English without using any sort of equal symbols, which are very programmy. So they're used in a language, and I'm trying not to do that. I'm trying to use English. So I've got if password equals swordfish. Now it can either be true or false. If it's true, we need to print something out. And what we do is we indent. So the next line, if it's true, is indented. And it just says, write out you're logged in. And then following that from both if it's false or if we've printed our message and the program carries on, there's actually nothing else to do. It just ends. So there's the pseudo code. Then I've got a test plan, just the same as I had previously. I'm going to test it with a few things. I'm going to test it just by pressing nothing at all, see what happens. And I'm expecting no message to appear on the screen because they won't have typed in a password. And then my second test is they type in an incorrect password, like let me in, when the password is swordfish. So no message is displayed. And then they type swordfish, the correct password, and I expect the message to be displayed. That is my plan. Then I'm going to write my program in Python. Now, to begin with, when we write in Python, it might be nice to do all of the lines exactly as the design was. So the design was here, write out, please enter. So that would be print, please enter a password. It's always wise to put a space at the end after the last letter. Then the next one says read in password. So because we're using text, we need to use raw_input, and we also need to know that we are playing with this variable here, password. So password equals raw_input, and that's that line. The next one is my test. Now this is very specific in Python. We'll play with it a lot, so you will get used to it. We start off with an if statement. That turns orange to tell you it's a keyword. What comes next is something called a condition. And I'm going to type the word and I'm going to erase it because we don't need it. We always have a condition. And a condition is something as a question which evaluates either true or false. So I can say if password, because that's just been typed in, is equal. Now in Python we need two equal signs to test if something is equal. If we only use one equal sign, we're trying to put something in the variable password, which is wrong. So I'm going to type here if password equals swordfish, and then because it's an if statement and a keyword, we'll use this a lot, we need a colon at the end. Now when we use a colon, the next line after we press enter will automatically indent in Python. So when I press enter, it automatically indents, and then I get to the last line, write out you are logged in. So I can do print you are logged in, and that is the program. We can save the program. So if I just choose file and save, we can run it shortly because I need to test it. So we've written the program, but remember, we really should write comments. Now, I tend to write my programs without comments sometimes and add the comments afterwards, just so I can see the actual program. Because with a lot of comments in, you kind of lose where the program is. It's very difficult to see the lines. So I tend to start off writing maybe about 10-20 lines and then comment it when I know it all works. But you must comment it. So if you were handing this one that we've just written in as evidence for your project, that wouldn't be very good at all. This one would be the one that gets the marks. So we're going to test it. So from our testing plan, we type an empty string, then type an incorrect password, then type a correct password, and we've got what we expect down the side. So if I run this program, And I'm not going to run it for every single test. It doesn't look like I'm going to run it at all. There we go. If I run this test, and it says please enter a password, and if I type a wrong password, let me in, then it doesn't do anything. It doesn't print anything out, which is what we expected. So if I run the program again, and this time type nothing at all, just press enter, it doesn't do anything. So that's fine, that's what we expected. And if I type in the password swordfish, please enter a password, swordfish, press enter, it says you are logged in. So the program is working as expected, and that's what I've got in my test here. I've said what I'm doing each time, and I'm saying works as expected. And I'm giving the screenshots of the test working. So I did test 1 with nothing, test 2 with an incorrect password, test 3 with swordfish, and I'm giving the examples. Right, we're coming to the end now. Refinement. So the last one is refinement. Now this is quite a big topic. Sometimes we might just fix some errors that are in this table. So if it didn't work as expected, I would fix that, as we did in the last set of videos, as part of my refinement. Or knowing how Python works, I might combine the two print statements and the raw input statement into one, because that works in Python. It doesn't work in other languages, but that is refining my program. So what I mean by that, let me go back to my program if I can find it. I don't need these two lines. These two lines here can go into one. So if I pinch the green string there, so copy that and paste it into that area there, I can actually lose that line of code. I don't need to prompt the user. And that is a refinement. So I've refined my program based on my knowledge of Python and how Python works. However, I'm going to go into a second refinement, and this is really where you need to pay attention, because you're going to be doing some work on this one. The second refinement is going to be something called good programming practice. And we've got words in here. If password is equal to swordfish, we call that hard-coded. We are checking a variable versus something called a string literal. We call that hard-coded, and really what I want there is a variable. And maybe I can have a variable here, a message print you are logged in, rather than a string, and keep them separate in my program. Excuse me. So I'm going to try and use variables. And if I do use variables, really good programming practice says that I must set them to begin with. I must initialize them wherever possible. So going back to my variable table, which was just password, which was a string, holds the value of the password, I'm going to add some more in there. I'm going to have secret, which is going to be the correct password. That's going to be of type string. I'm going to have the prompt, which is this please enter a password, as a string, which is going to be prompted to be displayed to the user. And then I'm going to have this one, you are logged in, also as a variable. I'm going to call that message. Now the reason why I do this is if I need to change my program to maybe French or Spanish or a different language, I really know where all my words are. They'll be at the top of my program, and I can change them quickly, rather than have to go through thousands of lines of code looking for where I've done this. So there's a good reason to do it, but it does change my code. So here's my new pseudo code. Let me scroll up to the old pseudo code. You might want to have a look at it. It just said write out, please enter a password, read in password. If password equals swordfish, write out you're logged in. Those 4 lines still exist in my new pseudo code. Write out, read in, if write out. But this time I've got, instead of the actual please enter a password, read in the password. If password equals swordfish, write out you are logged in. Instead of, I've used variables, but I've set my variables at the top of my program. So I've said set password to empty string. So it contains nothing. So I've initialized it. Then set secret to the password that I want, swordfish. Then set prompt to please enter a password. Then set message to you are logged in. So all of these are the strings that I'm using in my program. Now I've got my 4 lines of code. So write out prompt, so that's really write out whatever prompt was, please enter a password. Then read in password. So it was an empty string, now it's going to contain either a password or an incorrect one or a correct one, or maybe nothing at all, it might still be empty. Then I'm going to check if the password equals secret, well secret is swordfish. Write out message, message equals, where are we? You are logged in. So that is the change. I've got more variables and I've changed my pseudocode. I'm refining my program. There's 1,001 ways of doing this. It really is up to you. But for good practice, this is the best way of doing things. This is showing that you understand how to program. So from there, we need to start writing the code. So let me show you how to start writing the code in Python. So let me go and get my program back up. So let me take this out. So it says set password to empty string. So what I would be typing here is password equals the empty string, nothing. And then I would set secret to swordfish. So secret equals swordfish. So your task now is to complete this program. So you need to set prompt, you need to set message, and then you need to use the variables instead of the string literals that were in your program. I seem to have gone a bit wacky there. So I have set you a project for you to have a crack at. I've filled in the project. It says here, the green text are the problems that you need to solve. So you need to do a flowchart and write it there. Now, okay, so you might not be able to put it into the PDF document. I don't want you to retype everything out in Word. Getting a screenshot and pasting it into a document is good enough, or even drawing by hand on paper is good enough to show me later. I don't need you to insert it into the document. I'm just showing you where in your document it would need to go. So you might want the heading flowchart and the heading pseudocode after it. And then a bit further down, right at the bottom under the refinement, I've said use the pseudocode above, which I've just shown you a little bit of, to complete the program. And I've started you off exactly as we did in Python here, when it decides to come back up, where password equals empty, secret equals swordfish. You need to complete the rest of the program, and if you can, put comments in. So that's the task, and that's what we've learned. We've learned about the if statement, and we've learned that the if statement is a diamond shape in our flowchart. So we've seen a new symbol. I think we've only got 2 more symbols to learn, but lots of different ways of building programs. We've still got iteration. This also uses the diamond symbol. So, quick overview of what you need to do. You need to produce this flowchart exactly the same. You need to amend the program so that it matches this new pseudocode. If you're into PHP and want to have a look, I've set out a separate video with me coding the PHP version, and it is very different to Python, so you'll need to watch carefully.